Before I start this video, I just want to say that I am aware that large portions of Arcane Season 2 have leaked. Don't spread the leaks here, I haven't seen them. If you are one of the people spreading the leaks, then I wish terrible things upon you, because that's just mean. With the release of Arcane Season 2 fast approaching, there was one thing that I really wanted them to do, but didn't think that they would. And then they released the trailer, which, if you haven't seen, you should. This looks really good. I'm very excited. But if you look here, you can see that Ekko has the zero drive. Now, I hoped they would give Ekko the zero drive, but I didn't think that they would, because what the zero drive does is it puts Ekko at a much higher power level than all the other characters in Arcane, I think. Yeah. Because what the zero drive does, it enables Ekko to rewind time. And time travel is a very, very powerful mechanic. What I expected them to do was... I anticipated that they'd have Ekko messing around with a Hextech gem in a lab somewhere, and he'd drop it or hit it with something, and then there would be an explosion, and that explosion would cause a time rewind to undo something bad that had happened shortly beforehand, or, you know, at the same time as Ekko was messing around. And then after that, Ekko would sort of go, well, that's something I'm going to mess with later. As sort of a nice little reference to his time travel capabilities, like they did in his fight with Jinx in Season 1. So, the question this now leaves me with is, how are they going to give Ekko the zero drive while simultaneously maintaining stakes in Arcane? Because Arcane Season 1 is a show that there are a lot of stakes to everything that happens. To do this, I'm going to look at the various abilities that the zero drive has exhibited in other forms of media before, just to try and come to some kind of ultimate understanding of how exactly it's going to be used in Arcane. So, let's start with his release video, which consists of Ekko fighting a guy in a Chemtech suit. What we see here is that he activates a dial on his gauntlet to rewind back to a point at which he pulled this cord on the zero drive. What we can assume from this is that pulling that cord set a reset point, and then activating the zero drive after that rewinds him back to that reset point. Okay. What we can also see from this, the amount of time that he rewind changes, because every instance he gets further into the fight drags out longer, but he rewinds back to the same point. The third thing to note is that while his body physically heals, every injury seems to leave some kind of mental scar on him, because he sort of shakes each part of his body that gets injured, almost as if he's got some kind of phantom pain in his mind, because his mind doesn't rewind, it's only his body that does. Next is his short story. This phrase, "good thing Ekko had triggered his zero drive," implies setting a reset point, because if he could rewind freely, then triggering the zero drive beforehand doesn't matter. However, there is no mention of setting a reset point when rewinding the conversation with his parents. So either he went back to a reset point from whatever the last reset point he set was, or he is rewinding a certain amount of time freely regardless of having set a reset point. This will be the first time that His method of travel is non-consistent, and it will almost certainly not be the last. Now we go on to how the Zero Drive works in games. In League of Legends, his ult rewinds him to exactly where he was 4 seconds ago, and heals for a percentage of the damage that Ekko took during the 4-second time period. So this doesn't have a reset point. This rewinds a set amount of time, presumably because for gameplay reasons that's better. And this also heals him a percentage of the damage, which can be sort of related to his body healing, but not necessarily his mind. I would just like to note there was a prototype of Ekko's ult, which would make a note of the exact game state at the point it was activated, and then a few seconds later rewind the entire game back to that point, which is very funny, but this was removed because it would be kind of dumb. Stupid gameplay reasons. Next is Legends of Runeterra, which actually has 3 different time-related things. The first of these is the predict mechanic, which Ekko and Zillion use, implying that they are able to see future time periods. Ekko specifically because he's seeing a future time and then rewinding to undo it. However, Ekko also has the Parallel Convergence and Chrono Break cards. Parallel Convergence reads as bringing versions of characters from a different timeline, is what you can probably understand it to be, converging parallel timelines. While Chrono Break revives every unit on your side of the board that was killed in that turn. So it does a full reset on every unit on your side of the board. Finally, the platforming game Convergence. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to be ignoring future Ekko's powers, because they're insane and dumb and completely different to everything else that the Zero Drive can do, and it's not gonna, they won't be being used. So the rewind in Convergence is designed to save you if you fall or if you die. So it rewinds completely everything a number of seconds based on the amount of energy stored. There's no need to set a point, it's just a rewind, and it will heal you of any damage that you take over the course of that rewind. So, to summarize all of these, we have discovered that the Zero Drive rewinds time either a certain amount of time or back to a set point, regardless of the amount of time having elapsed since then. That this affects Ekko or everything. Although, granted, the one that only affects Ekko is League of Legends, so... No, that's not true, actually. Legends of Runeterra has it too. Okay, maybe I'll just cut this entire bit. And that it undoes either a certain amount of physical damage, but not mental damage, or all negative effects that have been undertaken at the point of rewind. Looking at these, what is the most likely way in which the Zero Drive will be used in Arcane? So, to start with, I don't think Ekko will have the Zero Drive until maybe the second last episode. I don't think he will have it functioning before then, because he could effectively stop any kind of build-up up to the last episode. So I think it will be very much a final confrontation thing that he finally gets. Next, I think it will probably have a limited number of uses, in some way described by Ekko going, well, I can do it like twice and then it will explode and kill everyone. So we only get 2 shots, or we only get 1 shot at this kind of thing. This is what I'm expecting. Next, I think it will rewind a set amount of time rather than requiring Ekko to set a reset point. This is because it will be new to him, so it almost certainly won't be a finished version. So I think it will be sort of a prototype of click the button, time gets rewound a random amount of time that Ekko may or may not actually have any kind of control over. Yeah. And finally, I think it will undo any damage that Ekko receives, simply because any situation where it would be being used, they would then want Ekko to be capable of resolving the problem that he experienced, that caused him to rewind in the first place, which, based on how Arcane Season 1 went, is going to be something very dramatic, and it would sort of kill the moment if he's suddenly going, my leg, because his leg got hurt prior to the rewind but is now completely fine. So yeah, that's how I think they're going to use the Zero Drive. I can't wait to see how that actually all plays out. I'm very, very excited.